In Africa, they say, when the roots of a tree are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. This is the story of a girl who had no home, yet her roots were deep. And of a boy who had everything, yet didn't know the value of the smallest gift. It is a story of chance meetings, of lessons shared, and of hearts changed forever. It begins at sunrise. The first call to prayer floated gently over the rooftops of Lagos, carried by the early morning breeze. In the streets, vendors stirred. Mama Chidi was already arranging roasted corn on a charcoal brazier, the smoke curling into the pale sky. A pepper seller's voice rang out, fresh red pepper, sweet pepper. And somewhere far off, a Danfo bus conductor slapped the side of his yellow bus, shouting, "Oju Elaba! Oju Elaba! Last seat!" Beside a closed kiosk, a small figure stirred. Amina, just 13 years old, sat up from her cardboard bed. She rubbed her eyes, pulled her faded blue dress into place, and reached for the one thing she owned that mattered, a small, smooth stick. Her pencil. She greeted Mama Chidi with a shy smile. "Ikaro, Mama Chidi. Good morning, Mama Chidi." Mama Chidi responded, "Ikaro, my child. Go with God today." And with that blessing, Amina set out for the dusty patch of ground she called her classroom. Behind tall white walls, in a grand house with marble floors and chandeliers, 10-year-old Toby Adewale sat at the breakfast table. The room smelled of fried eggs and fresh bread. A crystal jug of orange juice glistened in the morning light. At the head of the table sat Chief Adewale, Toby's father, a man known for his wealth and his seriousness. Toby toyed with his bread, staring out of the tall window. Outside, beyond the mansion's iron gates, he could see the world his father rarely spoke of. Dusty streets, hawkers, and a girl kneeling in the dirt, writing something with a stick. That morning, as Toby waited for his driver by the gate, curiosity got the better of him. He stepped closer to the girl. "What are you doing?" Toby asks. She replied without looking up. "Teaching him the alphabet." Toby glanced at the younger boy she was helping, his bare feet dusty, his eyes wide with focus. "Why?" he asked again. "Because words can open doors that even money cannot," she responded. For a moment, the noise of the street seemed to fade. Toby crouched down. "Can you show me too?" he asks. Amina looked up at him, a rich boy in a neat uniform, and smiled faintly. "Of course," she replied. And so she drew the letter A in the dirt. Toby copied it, clumsily. They laughed together. It was a small thing, but it was the beginning. The blare of a car horn shattered the moment. A black SUV rolled up, and the driver leaned out the window, calls out, "Oga's son. Time for school." He eyed Amina with suspicion. Toby scrambled into the car but looked back. "Tomorrow. Same place?" Toby asks. Amina nodded. As the SUV pulled away, the girl picked up her stick, looked at the smudged letters in the dirt, and smiled. "They say, the river is not proud because it is wide. It is proud because it gives water to the people." That day, a wide river began to flow between two very different worlds. Friendship is like a small seed. It does not look like much in the beginning. But with time, care, and a little rain, it can grow into something mighty. Over the next few weeks, Toby found reasons to leave for school a little earlier. Sometimes he carried a small notebook in his bag, just for Amina's lessons. They sat in the same dusty patch under the shade of a crooked jacaranda tree. The jacaranda's purple blossoms fell like gentle rain, sprinkling their classroom with color. "Today, we will learn a new word, hope. Do you know it?" she asked. "It means, when you think something good might happen," he answered. "Yes. And sometimes, hope is the only thing you can hold on to when everything else is gone," she said. She traced the word hope in the dirt. Toby copied it carefully. That day, they shared roasted ground nuts, cracking the shells and laughing. One evening, as Amina was packing her little tin box of treasures, a few pebbles, bottle caps for counting, and her stick pencil, Mama Chidi walked over to her and said, "Amina, that boy. His father is a man of power. People like him. They can warm you." "I'm just teaching him to read, Mama," she replied. Just remember, fire does not choose what it burns," she concluded. Her words settled in Amina's mind, like a small stone dropped into a deep well. One afternoon, Chief Adewale returned early from a meeting. As his car slowed near the gates, he saw his son crouched in the dust with a barefoot girl. The driver cleared his throat nervously. Adewale rolled down his window and said, "Toby gets inside." "But Papa," with a command tone. "Now." He gave Amina a long, unreadable look before the gates closed. That night, Amina lay awake on her cardboard bed, staring at the stars. And in her mind, she went back to her village by the sea. Her father's voice echoed, "The net is useless without the hands that weave it." She remembered helping him mend nets, the smell of salt and fish. She remembered her mother's laughter as she pounded yam, humming old songs. And she remembered the night the storm came, a black wall of clouds, rain like stones, the sea roaring like an angry god. When the morning came, her parents were gone. Since then, Lagos has been her home. The streets had been her classroom. And teaching the little ones, her only joy. One morning, as Amina waited for Toby, a group of older street boys appeared. "Rich boy's friend, eh? Bring his bag," one of the boys said. Toby arrived at that moment, holding his school bag. The boys stepped toward him. Without thinking, Amina stepped in front of Toby. "You'll have to go through me first," said Amina. They laughed, but at that moment, Mama Chidi appeared, brandishing a wooden spoon like a sword. The boys scattered, cursing under their breath. Toby looked at her in amazement. "You're braver than anyone I know," he said. A few days later, Adewale waited at the gate. When Amina approached with her stick pencil, he stepped forward and asked, "How much?" "Sir?" said Amina. "To leave my son alone." "How much do you want?" he asked again. Her eyes hardened. And said, "Chief, knowledge is not sold in the market. You cannot buy what I give him." She turned and walked away, her head high. Adewale stood there, her words echoing in his mind. They say, when you educate a child, you sharpen the spear of tomorrow. The spear was being sharpened, but Adewale could not yet see its value. They say, a man who closes his eyes to avoid seeing the truth will one day stumble in broad daylight. Chief Adewale was a man who thought he knew the world. But soon, a homeless girl's words would open his eyes. That evening, Adewale sat in his study, the glow of his desk lamp casting shadows on stacks of files and contracts. But his mind wasn't on business. He kept hearing her voice. "You cannot buy what I give him." He remembered his own childhood, a boy in a dusty village, learning under a baobab tree from his mother. She had taught him that respect and kindness were the true currencies of life. He slept late, and in his dreams, he was once again under that tree. His mother's gentle hands guided his small fingers over the lines of a worn book. His mother told him wisdom, "Adewale, is the light that never goes out. Guard it well." The next morning, Adewale called his driver and said, "Find that girl. Bring her to me tomorrow. I want to see these lessons for myself." When Toby told Amina, she hesitated. "In his house? I don't belong there," said Amina. Mama Chidi put a hand on her shoulder and said, "A good drum is heard in the palace as well as in the market. Go." The next day, Amina stood at the mansion gates, clutching her stick pencil. The iron gate swung open slowly, like the mouth of some great creature. Servants whispered as she passed, some curious, others disapproving. She followed Toby into a lush garden where the air smelled of hibiscus and freshly cut grass. Adewale sat beneath a large umbrella, watching silently. Amina knelt on the grass, opened Toby's notebook, and began. Today's word is compassion. Do you know it? To care for someone, even when you don't have to? Toby responded. Exactly, she said. She told a proverb. Ini and lasso me, people are my covering. She explained. We are rich when we care for one another. Adewale's stern face softened. He leaned forward, listening as she used bottle caps to teach multiplication and told stories of rivers feeding great oceans, comparing it to small acts of kindness feeding a great community. After the lesson, Adewale approached Amina and asked, Why do you do this? For nothing? Amina replies and says, It's not for nothing, sir. Every child I teach is one less shadow in the world. He stood there for a long moment, saying nothing, before walking away, but his steps were slower, his expression distant. They say, the ear that listens is the first to hear the drumbeat of change. And that day, the drumbeat had begun in Adewale's heart. They say, when the heart changes, the path changes. Chief Adewale's path was about to take a turn no one could have imagined. Days passed. Adewale found himself looking for Amina's lessons in the garden. One evening, he sat on the balcony, watching the street lights blink on across Lagos. In his hand was a photograph of his late mother under the old baobab tree. He remembered her words. The richest man is the one who invests in people. And for the first time in years, he smiled softly. The next morning, Amina arrived as usual, her stick pencil ready. But instead of the garden, Adewale asked her to join him in his study. Adewale calls out, Amina, I want to sponsor your education, not just today, but until you finish university. You'll live here, go to school, and never have to sleep on the street again. Amina's eyes widened and she asked, Why? I'm just me. Adewale responded by saying, Because you remind me of someone I loved. And because you taught my son, and me, that true wealth is in people, not things. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered, Thank you. Months later, the Adewale mansion's side garden had been transformed into the Amina Learning Center. The ribbon-cutting day was filled with drumming, ululations, and children in bright clothes reciting poems. Mama Chidi stood proudly at the front, clapping until her hands hurt. Adewale gave a speech. This young girl taught my son more than I could have imagined. Today, I want her lessons to reach every child who needs them. Amina looked out at the crowd, her heart full. Years passed. Amina attended one of the best schools, always returning on weekends to teach at the Learning Center. She became a role model to hundreds of children, street kids, market sellers' sons, and daughters of laborers. She even helped a runaway girl find shelter, saying, You're safe now. And one day, you'll help someone else too. 10 years later, the village where Adewale grew up had a new school. In its courtyard stood a great baobab tree, just like the one from his youth. On a bright afternoon, Amina stood under it, telling a story to a group of children. Once, there was a boy who had everything, and a girl who had nothing. But the girl shared the one thing she had, knowledge. And in the end, they both became rich. From behind the crowd, a familiar voice called, Teacher Amina. She turned to see Toby, now a young man, smiling proudly. Beside him stood Adewale, older but with kindness in his eyes. The three embraced under the baobab tree as the sun dipped low, casting golden light over the scene. In Africa, we say, a single bead does not make a necklace. It takes many hands, many hearts, and many acts of kindness to make something truly beautiful. Amina's life was proof that one act of compassion can ripple outward, changing not only one boy, but a whole community, and even the heart of a billionaire. And that, dear listener, is the end of our story. At the heart of this story lies a truth we often forget. The greatest treasures in life are not found in vaults of gold or the walls of mansions, but in the human spirit. Amina, Though homeless and without possessions, carried within her the priceless wealth of knowledge, determination, and kindness. She chose to share what little she had, and in doing so, she planted seeds that would grow into forests of opportunity for others. Chief Adewale, a man who once believed money was the answer to every problem, discovered that wealth alone cannot heal loneliness, cannot build character, and cannot teach love. It was compassion and humility that opened his eyes, and it was a homeless girl's courage that reshaped his legacy. This story reminds us that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to ripple through generations. Education is not just about reading books, it is about lifting others, creating hope where there was despair, and giving wings to those who cannot yet fly. True success is not what we keep for ourselves, but what we give to the world.
If this story moved you, let it be a reminder that you too can make a difference. Look around, there is always someone who needs a kind word, a helping hand, or a chance to learn. Tap the like button to let this message reach more people. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what lesson you took from Amina's journey. And most importantly, subscribe so you never miss another inspiring African folktale that uplifts the soul. Together, let us spread these stories of hope, because the world needs more light, more compassion, and more hearts like Amina's.
Thanks for watching. God bless you.